Hey everybody, welcome to another Probably Private. I'm Catherine Jarmal, and today we're going to talk about what I run self-hosted at home on my little NAS machine that I'm looking at right now. I have a video on how to set up your own NAS. What is NAS? Network Accessible Storage. So I have been running my own stuff on that for many years now. And over the past few years, I've changed to, I think, like more modern software. So when I started self-hosting a lot of my data, it wasn't so popular. And the software that we had was maybe not as cool as the software today. So I recently, in the past 2 years, have made switches to more modern software. And I wanted to share with you some of the apps that I use pretty regularly daily for some of them and what they do and why I like them. So let's start with what I definitely use every day for fun and for joy is Immich. So if you're not familiar with it yet, Immich is a photo and video hosting service that you can run on your own computer. It's pretty easy to set up. It can definitely be a bit memory intensive. So you definitely need to make sure that you have a machine that's big enough for all the photos that you have. But I really like some of the features. So one of the features is you can auto import from an external storage. So when I first migrated all my photos and videos to Immich, I just basically loaded it as an external library and then had Immich go through and pull everything from my old storage to my new one. And it has facial recognition, which you can turn on or off. Again, it's just running a local model, so it's up to you whether you want the photos of a person in your life to all try to be collected together using a local model. It's a pretty small model, so it runs even though I don't have anything fancy on my NAS. It's very low key, low tech. It runs fine on a CPU, and they also find duplicates. So that's what I like the most is that they try to find duplicates. There's a job you can run for finding duplicates, and then you can try to delete duplicates. And it also has why I log in every day. It has like this day in history. And so when I first canceled my Facebook account and I moved all my photos off of that, and then I also had all of these photos in Google Photos for a long time, and I stopped that back up and I moved all those off. Then it was like, well, how am I going to see my memories? And I originally had a Python script that I would run every night, and it would go through and look through the metadata of the photos and find this day in history and email me some. But that was, of course, tedious to maintain. If it broke, I'm the one that has to fix it. And Immich just works automatically. So it's really fun to log in and see, of course, all of the things that have happened on that day over many years. So can definitely recommend Immich. I haven't had to do anything after just getting it set up and working, which is fantastic. So A++, good job. The next one that I really, really like and I use every day is Vikunja. I don't know if I pronounced that okay, but it's a to-do application. And I was like a really intense Todoist user, and I was very nervous about immigrating off of Todoist. But I thought this opportunity, I can write down real client names and stuff like this if I'm not on a cloud service where I might be concerned that at some point in time my account or my data gets leaked, right? And it was first a bit of a learning curve of how to make the things work like what I was used to in Todoist, but I have it working now. If you're also somebody that uses Kanban a lot and uses, kind of project-based looking at things, then I would recommend learning how to use the subtasks. So there is a way to set up subs and project names and all of this stuff. And that's what I have now in my Vikunja. I like it a lot. I use it, I'll show you here. I use it for my content planning, and I have it now integrated into my shared calendar. So I sync all of my calendars with Thunderbird on my laptop, And this means that also all the tasks for the day are in there from Vikunja, and that's really makes it really easy for me to just log in and once a week do planning and then have everything just show up in my calendar with blocks to work on it. And yeah, can recommend. I'm really happy. I also use the mobile app now, and I haven't had to modify anything in the source code, which is fantastic. So I just really appreciate these open source projects. So I'll link to Vikunja too. I also have been running for a while LinkAce, I don't know. But it's basically bookmarks. Some of my bookmarks I actually put in files because I want to organize them how I use them. So when I'm writing a new blog post or a longer article, you can check out my blog, by the way, then sometimes I put it directly in the markdown files that I use to write. But for a lot of other things like artists I like, films I want to see, other things like this, I use LinkAce. It's really easy. It also has an integration with Wayback Machine, so it can automatically save screenshots of what you want to read for you. It's very intuitive, was super easy to set up using Docker, and yeah, can also recommend that. And then there's a few projects that I use regularly, but I did indeed fork them. One of them is Mealie. I really like cooking, and I save a bunch of recipes from blogs I really like and chefs that I like to follow that also thankfully have blogs and things that you can scrape. I really liked all the parsing that they've put a lot of time into. But the one problem that I had, it was pretty much only supporting OpenAI. I don't use OpenAI regularly, and so I wanted to make it work with my local LLM. And it did require a few weeks of my own part-time work, real code I wrote myself to kind of understand the Mealie structure, integrate it into a local LLM approach that worked for me. And I did write the authors if they wanted my contribution. I haven't heard back in several weeks, so my guess is probably not. But I use that also regularly to save recipes and to also search through recipes like based on ingredient or something like this and find things that I think might be interesting. I rarely follow recipes, to be honest, so I don't know why I put so much effort into saving recipes when I'm kind of one of those people. I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. I will make my own version of this. But it's good to have in case you do know anybody who likes to follow recipes. Can recommend Mealie. But for me, for like a fully local AI setup, did require forking and significant modifications. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. Supposedly it works out of the box with Olama, but results may vary in my experience. And plus, I wanted to use a separate LLM server. I want to use my big LLM server. Okay. And another thing that I forked that now probably looks nothing like the original is Endurain, I think it's called, which is for sports tracking. I'm a big swimmer, and therefore I have a swim watch that tracks my swimming. I do not connect it with the cloud, and so therefore all the files are there via a really cool project I can recommend if you also wear a sport watch and you want to get access to your data. It's called Gadget Bridge, and it's really cool. I've been using Gadget Bridge for forever, but it has pretty limited swim interface for reasons that there's not even that many people that like swimming, you know? And so what I found is I found Endurain had a pretty cool import that was working well for me. But then what I noticed is they also don't have a great swim interface. But there is a really cool project called Open Swim Data Analysis, which I will link if you're also a swimmer. And this has really cool graphs and charts and data about what strokes you're swimming and what your splits are per 100 meters, per warm-up, cool down, all of these things. I basically modified it. I did co-program with one of my local models. So I think I used a combination of a GLM smaller model and a Quen 3.5, I think was the one I was using then, to basically integrate that into the Endurain interface. So now it's like heavily forked. It doesn't really look like anything else, but that I have also hosted. And one of the things that I've recently been doing is trying to integrate and see, can I get a workflow that basically takes my swim data, takes some training plans from my trainer, and I have their permission to use this, and then tries to basically create new training plans from my local LLM. So when I'm traveling for work or for fun, then I have a training workout that hopefully my trainer would approve of. I have a separate machine that's my agent machine. It's where I also run a lot of the testing of spying on Claude Code. A lot of the work that I do with agentic stuff, I keep all on one machine. I have now a VM on the machine that's running essentially the agents I'm actually using. And there, again, I'm connecting with my local LLM server. I have some observability stuff we'll get to pretty soon on the channel. And then it's an extremely heavily modified NanoClaw, and I'll link to NanoClaw. I've done some pretty heavy modifications of that. If you're interested, I can do another video on how exactly I changed NanoClaw and why. But I have a bot that helps me with calendar organization, and that also has some code using Google's OR tools. It's basically a solver, right? And so I have some solver things on organizing my work with my calendar. So that pulls again from Vikunja. Then it looks at my calendar. Then it optimizes with a bunch of cool solver logic to say, hey, Catherine, you could do it this way or you could do it that way. Which one do you like better? And that helps me organize my work and plan things. And then I have another bot that is basically a huge reading backlog. So when I don't put in LinkAce, I put in this huge markdown reading backlog that's then categorized by topic area and categorized by my level of interest. And I just send basically links to this bot. It categorizes them, it sorts them, then it checks with me, does it look good? And that uses some basic NLP tools to help do that. And it also then bothers me to do my reading. So how do I learn? How do I grow? I build a bot that tells me, hey, here's some stuff that you said you wanted to read this week. Like, do you want to maybe read it? And it tells me that every day until I actually do stuff. Then I also type out what I've learned and have it sync with my content backlog on Vikunja, so that if I actually read something that I really want to make a video about, or that I want to write a blog post about, or that I should review again in a few months and see if my opinion has changed, then that feeds back into my to-do via an API token that sends it over across the local network from one machine to another. And yeah, that's all the stuff that I run. I hope maybe this was interesting for you. Why do I run this stuff locally? Like, why care? Why not just put everything in the cloud? For my work stuff, a lot of the stuff I work on is quite sensitive, and it would be quite silly as a privacy and security person to have something at some point in time be breached by no fault of my own, that some team somewhere accidentally misconfigured something and now that data is public, right? And so one reason is a little bit for me, I think it's important that, yeah, that I make sure that that data stays as secure as I can make it. And one way that I can do that is that I have the skills that I can self-host things and I feel comfortable doing so. And I have a backup strategy and. And why else? I mean, for photos and videos, I feel like it for me became quite questionable whether AI was being used either to train or evaluate or infer on the photos that I had in a variety of cloud storage places. And so I just thought photos are pretty sensitive, I think. I mean, as in I wouldn't want photos that I didn't want publicly posted to be publicly posted, and so I just thought that was an obvious place. And the same for my workout data and what I like to eat felt a little bit like those are private things in a lot of ways, and so I wanted to see if I could host them. I don't know why or if you're interested in self-hosting. I'd love to understand and see. And I'd also love if you can tell me if there's any of the things that I've talked about in this video that you really want to dive deeper into. How do I do this? How do I do that? Then let me know. And I'd be very curious to learn from you if you're self-hosting things. What are you self-hosting? Where? I also think it's kind of cool to self-host even in the cloud. So where you're running your own cloud server, if you don't want to run one at home. Like I, of course, have a backup sync for a bunch of my self-hosted stuff that runs every night and every month in a separate location so that there's always a backup copy somewhere. But I think self-hosting doesn't have to mean running it in your house. It can, like me, but it can also mean running it on stuff that you rent for your own purposes and just experimenting with what it's like to actually choose for you. How do you want to use your data? How do you want to modify it? And what data is for you private and important to keep potentially away from training algorithms that you can't control. I'm curious as to your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And I'm excited to hear what your self-hosting projects are. And maybe I'll learn some new things that I should try out. Okay. See you next week.